because I think anybody in their job, in any department, can make the organisation more inclusive if you think about the work that you're doing and how you do it.
What are the key changes businesses must make to become more inclusive?
So I think it's embedding inclusion into the way that the organisation operates. So it's not just about people's everyday behaviours when they're interacting with colleagues or customers or service users, but it's also about looking at policies and processes and systems so that everything everyone's doing in their day-to-day work or their day-to-day interactions, it's already weaved into what they're doing, and almost inclusion comes by design rather than activity or program based. And then to check that that's all working, the other big thing organisations need to do is use data. So whatever success looks like for that organisation, again, whether it's externally or internally, what are the differences in experience for people from underrepresented groups and overrepresented groups? And if there are big gaps, what then are the actions that are determined to close those gaps? And that's really when an organisation becomes inclusive.
What are the qualities of a high-performing workplace team?
So I think, people talk a lot about psychological safety, but to kind of give a more simplistic term, I think it's that it's safe to express an alternative opinion as long as it's respectful. It's safe to kind of respectfully disagree with each other. It's safe to offer an alternative perspective or viewpoint or share a life experience without people kind of laughing or dismissing your viewpoint, so that actually people are learning from the collective experiences and observations of each other. And I think part of that comes to, if you're working in a team where you've got people with similar experiences, be that the industry or be that their personal demographics or their age or any of those things, how do you go and deliberately seek alternative perspectives from people who aren't just like those people in the room? Like, what's the process of doing that so that you can make sure that you've actually got this wide range of perspectives before you make decisions? And I think the bit that underpins all of that is just really understanding that you don't know everything and you never will. So, if you've got 5 people in a meeting or 8 people in a team or larger, who else? Like, where else can you learn, and what other perspectives can you bring in before you make your final decisions?
What was the inspiration behind your book, Conscious Inclusion: How to Do EDI One Decision at a Time?
So I think I see the same challenges in every single business, and I see tons of commitment and passion and enthusiasm, and people intellectually get it and they want the world to be a bit fairer, but they don't know how. And I see an overinvestment on events or communications or activity. Maybe there's a few policy changes, maybe they'll look at their advertising, for example, but no one's ever really got the confidence of how to really embed it into the way that the organisation operates. And so I wanted to put something really practical out into the world that said, these are the things that you need to do. And this is how to do it. And here's a story, and here's an example. I've done it, or I've worked with this organisation, and here's the kind of step by step. So it's a really practical kind of user manual almost that walks through from a leadership point of view, or an HR point of view, or an operational point of view, or a wider world impact point of view, because there's this saying that gets bounced around a lot that it must be led from the top. And I get a bit frustrated with that, because I think anybody in their job, in any department, can make the organisation more inclusive if you think about the work that you're doing and how you do it. So if your leadership team haven't got the capacity to really be thinking about this or driving it forward, then it kind of implies that the organisation won't do anything to be more inclusive. And I just don't think that's true. So I wanted to create something that works for the board, the trustees, the exec team, and also the person who just really cares about this stuff and wants to do the work that they do better, so that they've got this kind of step-by-step guide. So more people learn it, apply it to their work, and then wherever they work for the rest of their career, they've got the core kind of understanding and structure of how to do it more inclusively.
What are the key tips to boost equity, diversity, and inclusion within a workplace?
So I think the first thing is start with inclusion. If you break inclusion down to its fundamental kind of definition, everyone wants to be valued, they want to be heard, and they want to be involved. So don't rush off and focus on diversity until you've really understood what inclusion looks like and understood if people feel included. Once you've got a bit more of a basis for that and an understanding, absolutely look at the diversity. Look at the layers of your organisation, look at your marketing campaigns, look at your product development, look at whatever it is that the organisation serves as a purpose for, and understand who you're appealing to, but also who you aren't appealing to. And then if you use something like an NPS score as an example to measure customer service, don't look at the total score, look at how that score is defined, whether you're part of the overrepresented population or whether you're part of the underrepresented population. Because usually what you find is the largest group is lifting the score up and it's hiding the experiences of the smaller group. So start with inclusion, absolutely work out who you haven't perhaps been including so far, and make sure you use data to understand what is and isn't working.
You led Sky to be the most inclusive employer in the UK. How can other businesses follow your example?
So I think it's listening is the biggest thing, right? You know, I was there at a time there was 24,000 employees. It was me and one other person that were kind of leading that work. But I was a bit terrified. I was slightly terrified of it. I thought, how can I, one person, authentically kind of advocate for and push for change for all of these different people's daily lived experiences and past lived experiences? But what I learned really quickly was I wasn't the only person that cared about it. There were lots of other people that cared about it. There were lots of networks, for example. There were kind of programs and initiatives that had been happening both on screen but also kind of internally for colleagues as well. So go and find the other people that care, listen, really learn, but also seek that external expertise as well. So whether that's benchmarks or working with an organisation that can support you, but ultimately what you want to do is create guidance for people that's got enough flexibility and freedom for people to be creative and have kind of autonomy to do it in a way that makes sense for their own work. And when you do that, like, people just go much further than you ever believed is possible.
What does the future of work and the workplace look like in your eyes?
Oh my goodness, that's a big question. I think I've said this even half an hour ago today. I think we are living through a fascinating period, and people in the future will look back and study us. And I think that the organisations that will remain relevant in the future will be the organisations that understand the different needs of different demographics across society and understand whether or not they're serving those different needs, and put in place specific things to address any of the gaps that they've got. And I think what I see more and more is people want their work to have a purpose and a meaning. So whatever your job is, whatever department you're in, no matter how senior or how experienced you are, people more and more want their work to be having an impact on the world, be that people, be it planet. So I think, you know, the world of inclusion, the world of kind of environment and sustainability, they're just more and more weaving together and becoming closer and closer as core parts of people's jobs, but also kind of side projects as well, and the things that they really care about and they're really interested in. And the other thing, I think, you know, if we fast forward to the future and we look back, the leaders today need to think about what people will say about them 100 years from now.
What advice can you give to leaders wanting to make their organisation more inclusive?
So I think it's invest, right? Like, be really serious about it. If you want your organisation to be consciously inclusive in the way that it operates and it does business or it delivers a service, be really deliberate and intentional about that. So you need a strategy, you need measures of success, you need good data to see what's working and what's not working so that you can recalibrate and go again. I think the big thing that comes up in every organisation I speak to is there's a big amount of fear of getting it wrong, doing the wrong thing, putting your foot in it. So one of the things I really advocate for is kind of a bit of courage and vulnerability, and experiment and try it. And if you get it wrong, take it on the chin, thank people for pointing that out to you, dust yourself off and keep going, because actually if people can see that you are committed and you care about it and you're committed to learning and noticing your mistakes and reflecting on that, you get forgiven really, really quickly. And I think then it's that how, which comes back to the book really, but help people understand how this relates to the work that they do. And if you can get 20% of the people in your organisation doing that, the world would be 20% better.